This is a Fox News alert. The suspect in the wave of bombings here in Austin, Texas is dead. And 19 days of terror in Texas, we hope, is over. Overnight, police tracking the suspect to the city of Round Rock, Texas, just outside of Austin. The bomber blowing himself up inside his car as a police officer approached him. Right now, we're outside the police headquarters here in downtown Austin with the governor of the great state of Texas, Greg Abbott. Governor Abbott, good morning.
Good morning. Good day here in Austin, Texas.
No kidding. There was a police briefing about 2.5 hours ago, and one of the FBI guys concluded by saying this was a great day for law enforcement.
It is. I mean, this is the quintessential example of law enforcement at all levels working together. As you know, we've had hundreds of federal law enforcement agents here who were a tremendous help. The Austin Police Department right behind us, as well as the chief, have done a remarkable job. And then, of course, the Texas Department of Public Safety has been assisting in multiple ways. And so this is from federal to state to local, a quintessential example of a team effort to get to the bottom of this as quickly as possible to save as many lives as possible. And we're so grateful they were able to bring this to a conclusion, at least with regard to the one known bomber.
That's right. And it is unknown at this point, Governor, whether or not there are other bombs out there, right?
Right. Two very important things before we can put this to rest. One is we don't know if there are any other bombs out there, and if so, how many and where they may be, because this individual may have, either by mail or by placement or whatever the case may be, have put other bombs out there. So everyone needs to be remaining vigilant to make sure that they don't pick up a package that could blow up. Second, very importantly, we need to go throughout the day to make sure that we rule out whether or not there was anybody else involved in this process.
Right. Obviously, he terrorized Texas. Is he a terrorist?
Well, the definition of a terrorist is more the mindset of the person who committed the crime. Was his goal to terrorize, or did he have some other type of agenda? Obviously, there was terror. What we need to find out, and I think we will find out, is did he have a different agenda that he was trying to achieve other than terror? And that we don't know yet, but clearly there was terrorism that was stoked.
Sure. And the randomness of the targets makes it more complicated. And I know you know a lot of stuff you can't really tell us, but what we do know is the suspect, the dead suspect, 24 years old, a white male from Pflugerville, Texas, which is about 20 miles from here.
Correct. Pflugerville is a suburb of Austin on the north side.
Okay, so the question is, why, if he lived 20 miles away, would he have a hotel room, presumably at the Red Roof Inn?
Good question. We don't know if that was a location where he was making some of these bombs. As you all know, as we speak right now, the law enforcement is at his house in Pflugerville, where we are learning whether or not that was the location where he was making his bombs. We will know more as we sift through his media accounts and piece together all the minute pieces of the puzzle to find out where, when, how, and why he was doing all of this.
Right. Okay. So in Pflugerville, do we know whether or not he lived alone?
Is my information right now, he had two roommates.
Okay.
And those two roommates have been talking to law enforcement. We're gathering information from them. I would venture to say those two roommates are not at this time suspects, but that will depend upon the information that we learn. And we are incapable at this point in time to rule out anybody else working in collaboration with him.
Okay, so if he had a couple of roommates and they are not suspects, there is a possibility he did not build the bombs in Pflugerville. He built them over at the motel or someplace else.
Yeah, that would be the possibility. But again, we can't say with specificity whether or not there was one or multiple locations where he was building the bombs.
Okay. Regarding the suspect, do we know whether or not he had a job?
As far as we know right now, he did not have a job. We do know, at least on our early information, that he did not have a criminal history. We're unfamiliar with whether or not we have no information that he was ever a member of the military or anything like that. And so we're still trying to piece together together, why is it that someone like this would go on this effort? And we don't know if it was a political manifesto or some other anger about some people, or whether or not he really just wanted to stoke terrorism.
It's interesting that at this point you do not believe that he was ex-military, because some people have suggested with this level of sophistication in the bomb building, he obviously had some sort of training. If it wasn't the military, maybe it was the internet, or maybe it was something else.
Again, is my information as of this moment in time that he was not ex-military, and so we don't know how he gained the skill set to be able to create these bombs. And as you have known and reported, there were multiple different types of bombs that he set off.
Yeah. Regarding, we've read in the local media that apparently they did get a search warrant, looked at his Google search results, something was suspicious in there, and was able to then track this guy down. He's been on your radar for how long?
Well, we've known for a couple of days who the person likely was. We needed to piece together information over the last 48 hours to make sure we knew precisely who he was, but it was through social media, but also through some other technologies that you all have reported, and that is with regard to the phone pings, with regard to his showing up to make purchases, not just what he did. It was very helpful when we learned the information about him going to that FedEx in the disguise, and we gathered.
So that was a disguise. That's not what the guy looks like. That crazy wig.
But we also know about some other purchases that he made elsewhere, where his image was seen, as well as the vehicle that he was using. And so we were able to piece together various pieces of the puzzle like that. But with each piece of the puzzle, it was not fully confirmatory who he was, but it did give us the ability to begin to track him.
If he had search engine results, he may not have then destroyed his digital footprint as the Las Vegas shooter did.
Right. What I'm about to tell you, I cannot confirm. However, it's my level of information that he did not destroy his digital footprint. It's my understanding that he went dark. He kind of closed down access to his accounts that made it more difficult externally for us to be able to tap into it. But I think there is a treasure trove of information in his house, as well as the digital information that should shed light more upon who he is, what he was doing, why he was doing it.
When you say his digital accounts, do you mean like a Google account, social media, Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook, Google account, things like that is my information that he shut those down, that made it so that for the average person to tap into it, it was difficult. We were trying to use law enforcement techniques to get into it, and I'm unable to report right now whether or not that was done before the time he killed himself or not.
In what you know about things that he has posted in the past on social media, did he seem to have an axe to grind with anybody?
There was, in the things he posted in the past before these crimes arose, there were no red flags saying, clearly saying this is a guy who's going to be setting off bombs.
Well, I think the people of Austin, Texas and around here are breathing a collective sigh of relief that this is the guy, but you still don't know if there are accomplices, and you still don't know whether or not there are other devices.
We know that the mastermind behind these bombings is deceased.
That's the guy.
But what we need to do, that'll take another 24 hours or so, is to find out whether or not there's anybody else out there who's been working with him who still poses a danger. And, of course, we need to gather information over the next 24 to 48 hours about whether or not there are any other bombs out there that pose a danger to anyone. So we caution everybody in the Austin area to be vigilant, to be concerned about any type of package that you may see. We have scanning devices that we've provided to the Austin Police Department to make sure that any package that people are concerned about are going to be able to have scanned, so that we will be able to rule out whether or not it is or is not a bomb.
I know already this morning you sent out a tweet talking about the good law enforcement effort. The President of the United States sent out a tweet as well. There was an unprecedented level of cooperation between the state of Texas, the city of Austin, the county of Travis and the federal government.
Right. Great job by Chief Manley leading this effort with the Austin Police Department, but we all know that this could not have been done by one agency alone, and we are very appreciative of all the resources that were provided by Washington, D.C., and the tremendous expertise they have there with regard to bombing issues like this. Very grateful for the Texas Department of Public Safety. They added more than 110 law enforcement officers, as well as bomb sniffing dogs, as well as these bomb scanning machines. And so this is the classic example of showing that collaboration of law enforcement leads to a better, faster result.
It does indeed. All right, Governor Greg Abbott, thank you very much.
Austin bomber is dead. That's where we began Fox and Friends about 2 hours ago. 19 days after the terror began, he is now, well, you could say for the moment, it is over.
Yeah, they were looking for him. When you went to bed, you're waking up. He has been found and he is dead. Police tracking the suspect to the city of Round Rock, which is right outside of Austin. The bomber blowing himself up inside his car as SWAT team was closing in.
All right, we know he's 24. We know he's white. Right now, the FBI is concerned that there could be more bombs out there, considering how inconspicuous his other bombs were.
Yeah, people in Austin waking up with a sigh of relief, but also a little worried because they don't know, like you said, Brian, if there are more bombs out there. Steve Ducey is live outside of the police headquarters down in Austin. Steve, you got on a plane yesterday, and there was another incident last night, and then this morning we're waking up, the bomber is dead.
The suspected bomber is dead, Ainsley. And that incident last night that happened at a Goodwill location, somebody picked up something out of a donation bin, and it turns out it was an artillery training device. There was an explosion. Initially, the Attorney General for the great state of Texas said it was connected, but then 30 minutes later he said it was not connected. But it does sound like the news that we brought folks yesterday, that there had been an explosion at the FedEx location in Schertz, Texas, which is about 40 miles south of where I'm sitting right now. That really probably was what broke the case, because what they were able to do, in addition to that device that exploded there was another device found at a FedEx location out by the airport here in Austin. They were able to figure out when that particular package was dropped off. It was dropped off at a FedEx location out on Brody Road, not far from where we are. They looked at some surveillance video, and they were able to, for the first time, get an idea of what the guy looked like. They were able to use the surveillance. They were able to use the geolocator, and then they started tracking him. They tracked him last night to, it looks like, a Red Roof Inn up on Interstate 35, not too far from where I'm sitting right now. They watched him for a while. They were waiting for a tactical team to show up so that everybody would be safe. But suddenly the suspect got in his car for a reason we do not know. He started to move. They followed. Eventually he pulled over on a frontage road, and that is when he engaged an Austin police officer for at least a shot or two. Guy got back into his car and detonated a device. There's an ex-military witness who described to one of the local news affiliates here, it sounded like 2 grenades went off. And right now, all that action that you're looking at is in the parking lot of a Red Roof Inn, so that is where we presume the suspected bomber was just before he got in his car and blew himself up.
And there's so many locations to be interested in. We got to find out what he was doing in that hotel. We want to find out where he lived. Also, since he blew himself up in the car, what's left of that car? What other material was there? What other things did he buy? And most of all, what was his motive for creating all this terror over the last 19 days?
Yeah, we definitely have so many questions. Todd Pyro is live down in Round Rock, Texas, where that suspect did blow himself up, right behind you. Todd?
As they try to answer those questions, guys, you can see behind me, as the sun comes up, those individuals, ATF, Fire Department, FBI, and of course the great work of the Austin PD, they're still there trying to answer those questions. Right there, You're looking at the area where the suspect blew himself up earlier this morning. That investigation expected to go on for a very long time. Traffic on I-35 South is being rerouted. There are no cars going that general vicinity. Steve explained the nuts and bolts as to exactly what happened. We spoke to the mayor, who said earlier it really was the community that came together and helped to solve this case. Take a listen.
Our community has rallied. You know, the only job we had was to be a little bit more vigilant, to notice things that were suspicious or out of place. And we were all doing that as a community. And I think as facts come out, the community is going to see that that actually helped resolve this.
But as the Austin police chief said, this case is far from closed.
This investigation is still underway, so we cannot say that this was an individual acting on their own. That's why this investigation will continue through the day or days coming.
So again, the number one takeaway from that press conference for the public: we're not done here. You still need to be vigilant in your communities. You did great work so far, but you need to keep it up, because there could be packages out there that authorities don't yet know about that could cause severe damage.
All right. Thank you, Todd. We're just learning some new information out of the Fox 7 affiliate there in Austin. They're saying that the suspect, the white male, is from Pflugerville, and they're not ruling out that others might actually be involved.
Wow. So you really cannot rest easy if you're in Austin. Not only might there be packages spread around before he detonated the package that ultimately killed him, reportedly, but now we find out that they can't rule out accomplices, rather. Meanwhile, Geraldo Rivera is with Steve, sitting by his side. And Geraldo, guys, I imagine you got new information.
Well, it is new, the witness account that apparently when the guy detonated the device, it sounded like 2 grenades. But now that we know that it sounds as if the guy is from Pflugerville, which is not too far from where we are right now, Geraldo, it'll be interesting to look at his digital footprint, because I know that the authorities, before they were able to locate him with surveillance and geolocation cell phone information, they did get a Google search, a search warrant to look at his search history. I wonder if he'll be like the shooter at Mandalay Bay, who before he made his last stand up on that high floor in Las Vegas, he pretty much erased everything. All of his digital footprint went away, at least to what we know of.
I think in this case, the difference is, I'm not sure, and I do not believe that the bomber here in Austin knew that this was his last day, unlike the situation in Las Vegas. So I think there should be a treasure trove of forensic evidence that will lead the investigators to conclude, I believe, that he acted primarily alone. I'm not suggesting that nobody knew anything about any aspect of his diabolical plots, but my sense is that this is one of these freaks who just wants to go out there and inflict as much pain and suffering as he possibly can. As we look at the scene, you notice a lot of the guys are just standing around. Chief Manley said about an hour and a half ago, Steve, that he was waiting for daylight. It's 7 o'clock Central Time. Right. And it's still quite dark. We're in the western side of the Central Time zone. And it's cold. And it's chilly. But here, as dawn breaks, they don't want to miss a thing, and they're also concerned that there might be something dangerous that left behind.
To your point, Geraldo, what they have done is, Geraldo and I are sitting right alongside, actually underneath Interstate 35. Interstate 35 southbound has been closed to preserve essentially the crime scene, and the other location, the Red Roof Inn, which is the scene of all police activity right now, it is presumed, although the police have not come out and said, okay, he was holed up in room 235 of the Red Roof Inn. That's where we believe he was last. And to Brian's earlier point, that could be filled with bombs. It certainly is going to be a treasure trove of clues.
Well, I would suggest that his headquarters will be his home, that he was on the move. He had escalated his attacks. You went from placing the packages in front of people's homes to the tripwire to the FedEx. You know, I was at the FedEx here in Austin, just outside of Austin, where they found the package that did not explode, which also left behind valuable evidence of how he constructed these devices. You know, going back to your point about the digital footprint, did he learn how to do this on the internet? Is that what they'll find? This seems a bit more sophisticated than just some
guy with guns.
It seems as if he learned how to make bombs someplace in addition to what he picked up on Google.
And we'll find out more about that as his identity is revealed. We know the suspect, 24 years old, a white man, presumably from Pflugerville, Texas. What also will be interesting, though, Geraldo, is to your earlier point that he did not think this would be his last stand, where just at 2 o'clock this morning, when he realized the police were behind him and he detonated the device, and it sounded like a couple of grenades. It sounds as if he was brazen in appearing on camera at the FedEx store on Saturday morning at 6:30. He knows there's surveillance cameras everywhere, but he obviously thought he was smarter than the cops and smarter than technology.
Well, guess what? He wasn't. He had that lame wig on. Maybe you could bring up that footage. He had that lame wig on, and
it was blonde.
But carrying this big package, I think that alarm bells went off all over the place. And they used that. They used this escalation. They used the FedEx chapter in this saga to identify the person of interest, and then the person of interest becomes the suspect who leads to the confrontation that happened over the morning hours this morning, putting an end to the terror. One point I want to make, though, Steve, about Austin, Texas, particularly, because I believe that there is in the location, in the nexus of these crimes, there is some explanation as to what he was doing. Austin is not only the capital of Texas, it's also the home of the main campus of the University of Texas. It is a dot of deep blue in a sea of red. A very liberal town. They want to keep Austin weird. That's one of their slogans. South by Southwest, the big mixed media event, is just tapering out, just ending right now. So there was a lot of attention to this liberal island in the conservative sea that might have had something to do with his choice of targets and the timing of these.
This final hour of Fox and Friends, very shortly we are going to have the governor of the great state of Texas, Greg Abbott, join us.